Trustee Olson,
Here.
Trustee Reister,
Here.
Trustee Wagner,
Here.
Trustee Fields, President Pro Tem Keller,
Here.
President Frisbee.
Yes, we have the addition. Andy Campbell and his team are here. They were able to fit this in tonight, so we certainly appreciate that, to give a presentation on the utility financial situation of the village. There's no action item associated with it, but we thought it was a good opportunity for him to be in front of the council.
Thank you, Jim. Is any, motion to approve the agenda?
So move as amended.
Support.
Support by trustee Wagner. A voice for all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have Mr. Andy Campbell, utility.
Good to see everybody again. I think everybody, has everyone been on council that's seen a presentation from us before? Do you have anybody new?
Yes, no.
Okay, everybody's here. All right. So, just as a recap, we've helped the village on bond issuance and then water and sewer rate studies for the past few years. Here tonight to talk about the kind of wrapping everything up on the rate side, going into budget session here soon for the water fund, with the anticipated project going underway with USDA, and then kind of give just some an update and kind of some initial kind of rumors, I guess you could say, that we've heard from Kalamazoo, and kind of ask you if you've heard anything different from Kalamazoo on what happens on the sewer side going forward, because the sewer side, just hearing from other communities, we work with a lot of communities in the Kalamazoo area. We do not work with the city of Kalamazoo, but we work with most of the townships, and obviously you and a couple other communities that are on, other cities and villages that are on the system. So we want to kind of talk about the sewer side as well, but tonight we're going to start with the water side and the updates there in preparation for closing with USDA rural development on the water project. Go ahead. So on the water fund, while Brittany's passing this out, just to kind of recap where we stand on this. So the water USDA project was downsized. That was due to the favorable bids and final project costs. So the final project cost is $1,075,000, and we're going to go through the financials there, but that was downsized from the original project expectation. So we're going to kind of go through how that affects the financials and then go forward what we're going to do for budget here. But,
Andy, just so we're on the same page on how it's been presented before in front of the council, are you talking about the lead line replacement and water mains?
And water mains,
Okay,
yep.
so the council's aware, we're talking the project that was voted on and supported that should take place this coming summer north of the middle school. And why that figure was adjusted lower was impacted because we received a $1.2 million grant in which that money does not need to be paid back and could come off. The project is still on round numbers 3.1 million, so the $1.2 million grant we received, we're putting in 300,000 plus of our own ARPA money to bring the loan amount to the figure Andy will bring up. But the project has not been reduced, just the loan size, which ultimately, Andy, I'm sure will explain how it saves on the utility rate.
So on page one, we're going to go through, this is some of the background data. We're going to go through kind of where everything stands currently, and then recommendation for the budget year. So on page one, just going to kind of go through some topical numbers here that are highlighted. At the very top, you'll see that as of the last fiscal year end, 6/30/2023, the water fund had $645,954. Everybody see? Okay, so that, just to be aware of that, like, you guys in the water fund, it has an acceptable cash balance. It's a little bit over 12 months compared to operations, but this is actually right where we would want to see the minimum balance for the fund. So our minimum recommendation for the water fund would be around 500 and so thousand. So you're kind of right there right now. So this kind of goes into how we plan rates and stuff going forward, but you have an acceptable cash balance in the water fund. We do need to, on our recommendation, maintain that. There's not a lot of money to spend other than the money you're going to be contributing to the project. But we don't have the rest of the money to pay for the project either. So you are going to have to incur a loan if you approve the project going forward. You're going to get some money from the county for the ARPA funds to pay for the lead service lines. But everything is in pretty good shape on the water in terms of your reserves and then kind of how we're going to pay for this project in the summer. Page 2 on the back. This is kind of getting into water rates. So last year, just so you know, it is the same recommendation that we talked about last year. And just as a reminder there, last year we recommended a 20% rate increase on water rates. It was split by council into 10% implemented last year, and then 10% was going to be recommended for this year. That is the recommendation. You'll see that in a second here, but just overall, the charges for services have been coming in as expected. We're not seeing anything that's like wildly red flags or anything. You're maintaining the fund in an acceptable way. It's you're charging what you need to charge to keep an acceptable reserve to pay for the loans that are coming on and the ones you currently have. Everything's pretty steady on the water side, and you obviously operate that system yourself, so you have a little bit more control on that side. But this is the water fund's in pretty good position. Going to page 3. This is your budgets. So last 3 years of budget actual, and then your current budget for 2024. Your current operating budget at the very bottom, without the debt, without capital, this is just to pay for the operations, is $500,000. So this is the number that I was talking to before, comparing it to your cash balances. Your cash balance at the end of last year was 645. We would recommend a minimum of 500. So you're just above that, which is good. But everything's pretty steady on the water side as well. Your budgets, you can kind of see how they change over the past couple of years, but on the water side, it's pretty status quo. You guys are keeping, even with inflation, I will say, like, that is something that the village has done a very good job on the water side. You're not having massive inflation on the water. The expenses are staying relatively steady. The revenues that are being increased as needed to pay for the new bonds/loans, but everything's pretty good on the water side from what we're seeing on the expenses. Page 4 on the back there, this is the current debt going into the project. So you currently have 3 debt issues on the project. The water fund contributes to a portion of the 2014 capital improvement refunding bonds. The sewer fund and the general fund, I think it's the general fund is the other portion. You'll see the sewer fund portion in a second here, but that is just a portion of the debt in the 2014 column that the water fund is responsible for. You have the 2020 bonds that were done a couple years ago with USDA. And then getting to page 5, you'll see, yep. So 2020, on page 5, pink, all the pinks at the bottom, we're going to start there. That there's a number that's kind of like the top right pink number that says 47,000. That is the expected full year payment for the new bond issue. So I want to kind of compare that to page 4. I know that it might be hard to put them side by side, but what comes to it overall, why we made the recommendation last year to raise the water rates 20%, and why we need to still make the recommendation to do the second part of the increase this year, is because you have ultimately $47,000 of debt payments coming on if you close and implement this project, and there is no relief on the debt payments for the next 9 years. So if on page 4, you can see the debt payments are gonna be, on the current debt payments are all around 130,000 or so for the next 9 years. We don't, until that 2014 debt falls off. We are adding an additional $47,000 per year of debt payments, so that we do need to implement the second part of the rate increase this year to help pay for that. So as a synopsis, the cash balance is in good position. The revenues are pretty steady. Everything's going well. The expenses are being maintained and not wildly out of control with inflation like you see in other communities. Doing a good job there. We are taking on new debt, and we need to make sure that the revenue's in place to take on that new debt. So that's where the recommendation comes from, just basically saying same thing. It was perfectly fine to split it into 2 years, but we do need to make that next step to make sure that we can close on the project and move forward. So at the very bottom, you'll see kind of the note on that Jim was talking about. This is just the borrowing amount. So with the current now reduced expectation from USDA Rural Development, the agreement is $1,075,000 payable over 40 years. You can prepay it at any time. So if you ever get tired of making the bond payments, you can, just like a mortgage, you can pay them. You can pay it off. You can pay them partial, whatever you want to do there. Starts off as a 40-year commitment. It most likely will be below 3%. It depends on when the closing occurs. So right now, if you were to close prior to July 1, which I would hope is the case, got to make sure all the legal stuff is tied up, but the interest rate would be 2.75. If you close after July 1, that's why we currently have 3% in there, is because it depends on what happens with interest rates thereafter. So hopefully everything gets tied up before July 1. And I know it's moving in that direction, but there's still just a few loose ends on the legal side and just getting everything done with the federal government. But so hopefully those payments are slightly less than $47,000 is what it comes down to, as long as we get to closing by June 30th. Going back up to the top, what does this do to the ratepayers? So 10%, we always want to kind of reset that in our heads and kind of say, what does this do to the typical homeowner? We got to qualify it and say every homeowner is different. People use more water, people use less water, but the typical homeowner, which uses 13,500 gallons per quarter, is highlighted in blue. So in the blue pages, or in the blue boxes there, you'll see the current rate that they're paying. This is just the water portion of the bill, remember. So your bill's gonna have different components on it, but just the water portion of the bill is $89.30 in the current fiscal year. With a 10% rate increase, that homeowner's bill will go up to $97.22, which is an increase of about $8 per quarter. So the increase to the typical homeowner to implement this project would be $8 per quarter of an increase in their water bill.
Andy, if I can.
Yep.
On that and the mathematics of it is, had we not been able to secure the $1.5 million and that was added to the loan, the ratepayer in the village increase would have been doubled what it actually is going to be, or slightly more than doubled what it's actually going to be. If
you would have had to do a 20% increase
Right.
after you did the 10%. So it would have been 30% or so, right around there. So yeah, you saved, I mean, you can call it, let's say in round numbers, approximately $10 per quarter to the average homeowner by getting the grants that you got. So, and that's really, that just keeps your rate lower. There's nothing
over
to
the course of the 40 years.
Sorry?
Those $40 per year are each year for 40 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, I mean, that is, it was very good that you went after the county ARPA money. So the county ARPA money did help to keep the project costs lower and essentially saved your ratepayers about $10 a quarter. So it was very lucrative to get that part of the project paid for and keep water rates as low as we can and within reason in terms of making sure that we do have to, certain commitments that we got to pay for now, and so we have to do something now, but not as much as we would have had to do without the county ARPA funds and the grant. Just want to kind of put this in perspective. I always have to qualify this part of it, but we don't want us to just basically say like, hey, let's look at a community next door and charge what they charge, or how are we charging them compared to Portage or whoever you want to look at. But I do think it is important for people to know kind of where you stand in terms of water and sewer rates. So we'll talk about sewer in a second here, but in terms of water rates, the typical, we work with about 400 communities in the state, but about 200 of those have utility systems. The typical rate that we see for water is $135 a quarter is about the average. So on the water side, you're, with the recommended increase, if you were to implement this, and again, there is no action tonight, so I would hope whenever I take a pause here, there's questions or anything, but this is gonna come up in your next, for the budget for 24-25, but with that implementation going to $97.22 per quarter, you will still be well below the median that we see in the state of Michigan for water rates. We do have to take into account sewer, which I will be upfront with you, the sewer is a different story, but on the water side, you are very low comparatively, but you're doing the things the right way too. That's why I will just go off on a little bit of a tangent here. That's why we qualify it to say, like, you can't just look at another community and say, are we cheaper or more expensive than that community? Because you don't know if they're doing things right. You don't know if they have cash in the bank. You don't know, they could be running their system into the ground and not doing anything about it. You never know, they could be having, they have a huge user that pays the predominant portion of the revenues and keeps everybody else's rates lower. There's a bunch of different situations of why a community may be more expensive or less expensive, but I do think overall you do have to kind of make sure that you're in line and make sure you know when people ask you about why their water bill went up, you can kind of give them those points about you're still, relatively speaking, much lower than the average statewide, and you are actively maintaining and improving your system and going after grants and doing everything you should to keep those rates as low as you can. So
something that the community constantly asks about.
yep, and I know,
So
I'm
this
sure
is helpful.
a lot of people, when they look at their bill, they talk about the water bill, but it's because of the sewer side, which we'll talk about is somewhat outside of your control. But we will talk about that in a second here. But I know that's probably what they're keying in on is the sewer side of the bill, because it is more expensive on sewer. But on the water side, everything is reasonable, and you're doing a good job maintaining everything. So, questions on water? All right, there's a couple numbers at the very bottom before I wrap up here in water. Just to kind of show you, like, the green box is there. This is basically to maintain standards and make sure that we have enough money in the bank for hopefully not having to do a bunch of future borrowings. We do want to make sure we don't spend down the reserves on this project and just have to borrow money like for every single project going forward. So we're keeping an acceptable reserve in the water fund. We're trying to make sure that as things come up in the future, maybe you don't have to do debt issues every time. We want to make sure that there is some money to do cash fund and capital improvements. The other thing, I'll touch on it real quick, but there's a box that's kind of highlighted in teal turquoise there. We'll work with Jim and Michelle on this. There's debt service reserves. It's basically savings accounts you have to set up for the USDAs, but it's just a policy thing that you have to do with USDA. You have to basically put aside some of your reserves in a savings account as part of this deal, but we'll work with Jim and Michelle to make sure that that's done according to their standards. That's just a very small point of the presentation. So let's go to sewer. So before while Brittany's getting the sewer stuff passed out, oh, good, okay, well ahead of me. All right, so let's talk about the sewer side. So I just want to kind of talk about a couple things and then kind of ask you all, you guys are closer, we're from East Lansing, but we do work with, I think it's like 5 or 6 of the townships. We work with you guys, Parchment, like fewer of the cities and villages that are on the system. The Kalamazoo issue is pressuring a lot of communities. Again, we do not work with the city of Kalamazoo in any respect that I know of. At least I don't think we do anything. Baker Tilly is a big company, but we personally do not work with them on the rates or bonds. As far as I know, they're still facing massive budgetary pressures with the sludge hauling is what was the major point of this, so.
Yeah, and to let the council know, I've had communication with James Baker, who runs the Kalamazoo system, and we're working right now to find a date, because he's more than willing to come in and present to this council on what they're facing for upgrades of that system. So I anticipate us being able to find a council meeting that occurs well within this budget season.
So this is a couple months old now. I don't know if you know of anything, please interrupt me if you know of anything updated here, but a few months ago, this has actually been in the making for, time flies, it's gotta be a year or two now. So let me just make sure everybody's on the same page. Like, Kalamazoo historically had very good economies of scale. They have a very tight system in terms of like many houses on every single pipe. So historically, they were able to keep rates very low. And again, my understanding from the outside looking in, working with the other communities around them, is that they were maintaining the system. It wasn't like they were running into the ground, but then they, along with other communities in the state, ran into problems with sludge. And again, just from hearing through the other communities, this is essentially coming from the townships, that Michigan has put a lot of pressure on communities about how to land apply sludge and whether or not you can do that anymore. And my understanding is that Kalamazoo is no longer able to land apply either any or a significant portion of their sludge. If you're not familiar with sludge, sludge is essentially what's left after you dewater the waste. So after you take out all the water, the gray water, and you treat that, there's essentially, it's like the solids that are left. And typically and historically what communities would do, most communities would either, they could sell it, or like the farmer would buy it, or they would pay a farmer to take it, or it would be free, or communities had and this is something we talk about with communities all the time, everyone had all these different deals. Like, some were paying farmers to take it, some farmers were paying communities to take it. Essentially, it's fertilizer, and it fertilized a lot of the fields around you that did not have human crops. So it was put on fields that had livestock crops or something like that didn't affect humans in the future. But essentially, that was perfectly fine for a number of years. And then, unfortunately, now the understanding from the outside looking in again is that Kalamazoo, like many of our other communities in Michigan, have chemicals in this sludge that can no longer be land applied. One of them, the major one, is PFAS, which I know you all have probably heard of in this area. So they're dealing with what essentially was like, oh, this is a pretty cheap way to get rid of the waste. We're just gonna either contract it out or like get rid of it, essentially, and just send it to the farmers to fertilize their fields. Now they have to truck it to a special receiving facility in Detroit. That is very, very expensive. So that's what they're dealing with. I'm not bailing them out. Again, that it's not, but I just want to make sure everybody knows, like, this is going to change, and I'm very happy to hear, like, James is willing to kind of give you a presentation, because everybody, we've been imploring the townships, we've been imploring that this affects like City of Parchment. Everybody that's on the Kalamazoo system needs to know as much information as possible on this, because it ramped up costs drastically. I know I'm in a public meeting here, so I gotta be careful what I say, but it was something to the tune of like $40 million a year that their budget went up because of this. They have to haul essentially every day to Detroit. So that essentially obviously does not stay in Kalamazoo, and that has significantly affected every single community's budget that is on the Kalamazoo system, because they have to pass those costs along to their customers and the member customers, which are the townships and cities and villages that are on the system. Our last communication, this is again a few months ago, was that and I'm going off of memory here, but I believe that they did 20% rate increases, and they were anticipating somewhere in the range of 15 to 20% for the next few years. So the good part, if there is a good part of this, is that that does not affect your full budget. So it does not say if like Kalamazoo raises their piece 15%, it doesn't mean that your budget goes up 15% because your own, and we'll get to the numbers here in a second, but that's not your full budget. You still maintain a lot of control of the other aspects of your sewer system. If only one part of your budget goes up 15%, that doesn't mean that we need to do 15% rate increase right now. But it does mean that we need to very much keep an eye on what happens with that, because it was going a little bit more steady. We were able to kind of do inflationary increases and everything was going well on the sewer side. Now that presentation is going to be very important. You guys really need to know and push them. We need to find a solution because it is getting very expensive now for the village of Vicksburg. So let's get to the numbers and I'll show you kind of what I'm talking to in terms of the numbers here, and then obviously if you got questions, stop me. But just in the past here on the top of page 1, you'll see at the top right hand number again, at the end of the last fiscal year audit, you had a little over $2 million in cash. The sewer fund, relatively speaking, the sewer fund is doing well cash position wise. There's some aspects here that we got to be careful about going forward, but the cash balance in the sewer fund is doing well. That's a lot of the work that we've been putting in to make sure that we're going into these capital improvements realistically. So we don't want to do debt financing every single year for all these projects. We want to make sure that we save some cash. We'll talk about the grant in a second here, but the cash is in a good position going into the potential project next year for Sprinkle Road. Going on to page 2. This, I've talked a lot about rates already. We'll talk about this actually more in a second about what the potential is going forward. Page 3 is where all this kind of comes into play. So how this comes down into the Village of Vicksburg Sewer Fund is that at the very bottom, you'll see a number highlighted in yellow that says $752,500. In the current budget year, not including debt, we bring that in later, not including capital or depreciation, just your cash operating expenses at $752,000 to operate the sewer fund. In orange above there is a small portion of it is the portage transmission fees. I'm not going to really get into that too much, but the treatment cost from Kalamazoo is what I've been talking about a lot. That expectation for 2024 is $315,000. So realistically, they are about 40% of your sewer operating budget, just the operating portion. It's not your overall budget that's 40, but of your operating budget, they're 40%. So again, it's not that if they do something big that you have to do that in kind to your ratepayers, but it does affect your budget greatly. It's 40% of your operating. If they raise their budget to you a lot, you will have to respond in kind with something. So that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. It is expected that those numbers will continue to increase. Right now, you can see on the right-hand side, we are anticipating a 15% increase per year on those costs for the foreseeable future. We're going to obviously update that as needed, but that is the expectation. I would, if anybody's heard anything different, please stop me, but that's kind of where the last discussion that we heard was that it's somewhere between 15 and 20 is the expectation. So we're hoping that it's a little bit less and they're going to kind of figure out something here, but we do expect those costs to go up. On page 4, kind of the same situation as water. You have the sewer fund is responsible for part of that 2014 bond issue. You had a portion, the 2020 project was a bunch of different aspects. It was general fund streets, and then it was also water and sewer fund. So there's a sewer portion that the sewer fund is responsible for. And then page 5, so I'm going to start again at the very bottom. One of the biggest things, and this is the same thing that kind of happened on water, is the village is trying to do everything possible to go after grants. The grant for Sprinkle Road is just shy of 3.7 million. So a much bigger grant, it's in the EDA grant that you're getting for the project is 3,680,000, which cuts down the borrowing greatly. So the project estimate right now, this one is on estimate. So this one is going to happen, my understanding is the spring of 25 is the goal. Yep, so yeah, so we'll know final costs then, but right now we're at a $10,640,000 project, which is kind of in like the peach color, the bottom right-hand side. Take away the grant, which is 3,680,000, and then go all the way to the left, and that would leave you with a loan of 6,960,000. That interest rate was already set at 2%. You actually got that commitment in before interest rates went up, so you can pretty much bank on that. The interest rates are higher than that now. They give you the lowest of when they gave you that interest rate or closing. That's why I talked about the water's in a different situation, but sewer, it's gonna be 2%. As long as you comply with the project requirements and as long as you close on the loan, and you have that much money allocated to you at 2% whenever you close. That payment, if you go up a little bit to the pink boxes there, is $255,000 a year. So if we did the project, and that project was the $10,640,000, and you got the grant, and you had to borrow and pay back $6,960,000, that payment is $255,000 over 40 years. So every year for 40 years, that is going to. We are going to need to do something with rates in order to address that. If you recall, we've been planning on this, the Sprinkle Road project has been planned on for the last few years. We had been planning on doing a little bit higher than inflationary increases to cover Sprinkle Road. Why I kind of laid the groundwork for all this is it's not necessarily, I will say, we would prefer if it's implemented in 24, 25, but it has to be implemented by the time you close. So if closing takes place like next year or something, maybe that decision is up to council to decide what is the best for the ratepayers this year, this budget cycle, what's the best next year. Just like you did last year, we talked about the water rate increase of 20%, but it didn't have to be implemented all at once. So you decided to do 10 and 10, perfectly fine, because we're not closing on the water deal until this year. The sewer side, Kalamazoo is hitting us. It's changed the expectation. So we've been planning on Sprinkle Road for a while, but we can no longer just do inflationary increases. We have to address the Kalamazoo situation, and that is coming down to your budget as well. So we can't just say, okay, let's go do the Sprinkle Road project and do a 3% rate increase. The numbers don't work. So we're gonna have to do something. You can choose as a council whether or not you do it this year and just say, hey, we'd rather make sure both funds are in a good position and fight the battle 1 year and talk about the water project and talk about the Sprinkle Road project and get this all done at once, or kind of do the same thing we did last year and say, hey, let's do part of it now, but leave the major decision, finalize everything when we know bids and finalize everything for Sprinkle Road next year. It's up to you on what you want to do on the sewer side. I will just basically wrap it up on the sewer side and say, the recommendation is to address it now because of the concern with what happens with Kalamazoo. So you will see in there that we are recommending a 10% increase, which is about $1,850 or so per quarter to your typical homeowner. The sewer side, and I actually got to pause. I almost ended there. I got to take a couple more minutes of your time here. The water side of your system is very low in terms of rates. Remember, you guys the average that we see is 135 per quarter. You guys are going to potentially go up to 97 for a typical homeowner. On the sewer side, the average that we see per quarter is $150 per quarter. You're currently at 183. We are talking about going to 202. It is higher than average. That is so just as you said, Gail, when people are questioning the water bill and talking about this, they're talking about their whole water bill, and it's the sewer side that is impacting people's decisions about rates and stuff. And you have to be upfront and say, like, the sewer side is, relatively speaking, is more expensive than some communities. When you look at why that is, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the village is maintaining the system properly. You have a supplier that has, I believe from everything that I've heard, that they're still maintaining the system, but they are doing what they need to do to maintain the system, but they had a very large yearly expense crop up that they did not plan on. So that massively hit their budget, which hits everybody's budgets, including their own. That has been addressed through their rates, which go down to you guys, it goes down to their customers, it goes down to every township customer that's on the system. Like, everybody's hit with that. But if I were to synopsis like the sewer side, I would say, like, the reason why rates are higher than average is because you have loans on the system, you're going to do another project in the system, you're actively maintaining and trying to positively maintain the system. You could have just said, hey, let's let it all go, charge a lower rate, don't get any money in, and just let it all go and let it all break. You didn't do that. We tried to maintain the system effectively. We're trying to make sure that the sewer fund, the sewer system operates effectively for everybody. And that ultimately means we can get some of it with grant. We've been successful in getting some grant, but ultimately we do have to have money to do that, and that's where it comes from. So, comments, questions?
If we had a sudden influx of money, $2 million, give or take, how much would that affect it? I figure on the water alone, we could eliminate the 1.2 million.
Yeah, so let's see here, so essentially be paying down debt. On the water fund, I don't have the principal schedules in front of me, but
Can I ask Trustee Olson, I heard 1.2 million. Are you, the first column, the 2014 sewer fund is at round numbers 590,000, and the 2014 water fund is at 630, which then those two combined are 1.2 million. Is that what you're referring to?
I was talking to the 1.2 million, that we got a grant for 1.2 million, which is gonna help.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, but if we had a sudden influx of $2 million,
I can answer this. If we had an influx of that, we would look at those two 2014 refunding bonds that are at a point now they can be paid off early without.
okay,
So that would eliminate that $1.2 million of debt that would be going for the next 9 years that wouldn't have to.
okay, that's what I'm saying right
That, on a high altitude with the data tonight on just the basic information you said.
Right.
I'm pretty confident that is what my recommendation would be.
there. Okay, and my recommendation has been the same for the last 8 years, and sell that golf course. We can sell that golf course, we can save our taxpayers a lot of money and a lot of headaches. And it can save us a lot of headaches too. We can, with one clean swipe, we can save our taxpayers what they need to have saved. And that will give them the confidence in this council and in this village that we are doing what is necessary for them, but also saving them the money that we need to save. Okay? Once again, sell that golf course.
just to quantify that one, so we had talked about you saved $1.2 million from the grant, which saved your ratepayers about $10 a quarter. So if you got $2 million and you paid down debt with that, I mean, just in very rough numbers, you'd be saving maybe $18 a quarter to the typical homeowner. So I don't know, yeah, that I just want to make sure you have that, like how that affects the bill and stuff, so.
We didn't mention it, but on the grant that was received from the EDA federally, the just shy of $3.7 million, on round numbers saves a 30% increase to that Sprinkle Road project.
Yeah, I see you're
So
borrowing essentially.
So it has another savings. I think on the premise, from my standpoint of Trustee Olson's comments, I can assure this council that staff is looking at every way to have the least impact on our utility users, whether that is the submitting for grants to assist us, or looking at ways to efficiently run the system while addressing a system that dates back sewer-wise and water-wise to the 1920s and sewer-wise into the 30s. We're replacing some components. We just had what happened on Park Street, I think, this winter, where we had an $80,000 unexpected investment due to a sewer collapse and manhole situation, as well as looking at every type of funding to positively impact the citizens. So, and we'll continue to do so.
Any more questions for Andy?
I just want to thank you for, this is very, very easy for me to follow, so thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And again, I think the council needs to be aware, we also have engaged Andy and Baker Tilly in a longer-term relationship that goes outside of projects that the council supported, to be able to have, even if a project isn't going, he and his team and their experience in advising the council. And on behalf of staff, I know every time Michelle or I send an email, or especially me, that needs information within an hour, you always answer and readily help us out. So thank you, Andy.
Yep, appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you all.
I see no public officials in front of us tonight, so we'll move on to citizens' comments for agenda items only. If anybody so wishes to speak. Seeing none. And move to Tim Frisbee comments.
And thanks, Andy. We talked earlier on how you're hit the road to the next meeting. I think you might have. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I didn't take an earlier moment to add this to the agenda, but I want to do it now. So I want to thank those applicants for the open council trustee position. We had 3 phenomenal individuals, which made the decision very difficult. I think I shall state their names. We had Zach Bishop, Jessica Cox, and Chad Kissinger. And we had a formatted series of questions, so the responses were equally biased. So at the end of those, which took us the better portion of the month to get done, we tallied up a score, and I will pose to this council that recommendation will be made to appoint Chad Kissinger to the role of trustee. Chad's been with the Planning Commission in three years now. He currently chairs, super passionate, as all the applicants were, so it was a very difficult decision, but I won't go into the scoring, but just say that we would like to put forward Parks and Recs, excuse me. Did I say Planning Commission? Yes. Just to clarify, Chad chairs the Parks and Rec Committee. And very instrumental on a lot of things that they're doing, the movie and theater night that they're doing, and all these benefits for the community. So we'll throw that out. I don't know if either of you, the HR committee, had any comments they'd like to make. But.
I agree with you. I think that they were all very highly qualified to be part of the council. And I would like to encourage the other 2 to run this fall. You know, I think both of them would be fine members of the council, so I would encourage them to run in the fall.
With that, I'd entertain a motion to appoint.
So moved.
Trustee Wagner, support.
Motion made by President Pro Tem Keller, support by Trustee Wagner. You do a roll call, please, Christian?
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Chad, welcome. Be careful what you wish for. So that'll be all for my comments tonight. Thank you so much for this, council, for what you're doing. So we have a couple of agenda items in front of us. We have the minutes from our regular council meeting, April 15th. We have warrant reports, event requests for the gazebo, April 27th and May 4th, and the July 20th for the Pavilion Family Church outing. Was there any corrections, comments to the agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Trustee Wagner, I move that we approve as submit.
Support from Reister.
You do a roll call, please, Christian?
Trustee Wagner.
Yes.
Trustee Reister.
Yes.
Trustee Olson.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Takes us to council action items.
Thank you, President Frisbee. First action item is 11A. These action items all involve the 2024-2025 fiscal year. So this is work that will be performed after July 1st, 2024, but prior to June 30th, 2025. The first item is in the Centennial neighborhood, the original development. It's a crack fill, chip, seal, fog, seal, 1.77 miles of roadway within the neighborhood. This is under, I guess, a shout out of gratitude to the team at the Road Commission of Kalamazoo County. We started to discuss this last year. This is under the competitive bid process that they went through. They agreed to include us at the low bid amount. So they will oversee this process in the neighborhood, and that is at $91,590. All of these will be financed with State of Michigan Local Road Fund dollars. No general tax dollars will be needed. And our recommendation is for council motion support and approval to have the village manager enter into a contract with the Road Commission of Kalamazoo County to perform the road work this year that we're going to go through. This covers just that. I can read off all four. It's the same process in the locations with the associated dollar amounts, whatever your preference is.
Separate. No problem doing it all together.
Okay. Second is the Trillium neighborhood. This will complete the portion that we did a year and a half ago. It's a crack fill, chip seal, fog seal, 0.79 miles of roadway within the neighborhood. The anticipated investment is $46,420. And the which was original developer of Glasscock, the neighborhood development off 22nd Street, Christian Avenue. Again, a crack fill, chip seal, fog seal, 0.43 miles of the neighborhood at an investment of $32,837. The next neighborhood north on 22nd Street on the east side is the Prairies. Same process, 0.54 miles of the neighborhood roads at $32,352. And then Well House Drive, which is the drive that is just north of Sunset Elementary School, and parental drop-off and pickup uses Well House Drive and enters the neighborhood or the elementary school that way. That is 0.36 miles at $18,716. I do want to thank Mark Warden. Last fall, he spent time with me driving around the village, evaluating all the roads. We are continuing evaluation on a few additional streets, planning the 25-26 year, but for right now, it's our recommendation on these 5 areas for council motion support. And again, this is using state of Michigan local road funds, and no general fund local tax dollars will be used on any of these 5 projects.
President Frisbee, so moved.
Trustee Reister, support.
Any discussion or comments? When we talk local roads, is that what we refer to as Act 51?
Yes, it's Act 51.
So the reason, just for everybody to understand why we can do it all at once, are all coming out of the same fund, the 203 fund, so that's why I thought that we could do it together.
Hey, Jim, you said this would start after July 1st, the new fiscal year.
Yes,
Is it gonna be like right afterwards?
as their scheduling is right now, and talking to Ryan at the Road Commission, he believes it will start in July.
Thank you.
Jim, I got questions.
Yes, sir.
Especially Trillium. You have down for 2 of the neighborhoods need for Durapatch in a few areas. I take it you're talking the filling in and patching areas for like potholes and,
Large cracks, those are
Large
like
cracks.
more of a tar crack filler in that.
every spring we have a pothole at the end of winter cherry that keeps popping up like dandelions. And every year we fill it, and every year it comes back. Will that be patched or dug up and refilled?
No, that would be, because winter cherry is part of the process, so we'll make sure that that gets a more permanent solution to it
Okay.
in this process.
Will notices be sent out to the residents when this is gonna start? I got one neighbor that parks anywhere from 4 to 6 cars out in front of his house every night.
Yeah, we can make sure that that occurs through not only social media, our email distribution list, our texting distribution list, and quarterly newsletter, and if need be, we can certainly canvass the neighborhood
Okay.
the week before, once we narrow down the time.
Okay, all right, I'll speak to Joe too, but see if we can get the message across. But thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, the motion was made by President Pro Tem Keller, supported by Trustee Reister. We'll do a roll call, please, Christian.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
Trustee Olson,
Yes,
President Pro Tem Keller,
Yes.
Trustee Reister,
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. Everybody likes their roads fixed. This is all good.
The next item is 11B. Again, this is for the capital improvement plan for the police department. It is an upgrade to our police vehicle and officer body worn camera systems. Motorola Solutions WatchGuard system, both for in-car and officer body worn cameras. The existing system is in an end of life cycle, and the software is no longer supported. I think this is a good example. When we put this system into place, we had assistance for a 50% match from the Vicksburg Foundation. It's their philosophy to certainly provide dollars to have organizations implement the advantages of our officers having both a in-car camera system as well as worn on their bodies, be it state-of-the-art, is an investment for sure, not an expense, and has come in use on multiple situations. This has been something we have been planning for. We have put an amount not to exceed $27,500. The actual quote for the system is just under $23,000, but we wanted to, as you involve electronics and such, to add a contingency. But the funding are from the following sources. In the 24-25 fiscal year would be $5,000. The rest, it comes out of our CIP capital assignments, $10,000 for police capital assignments. We're using $12,500 from a village hall capital IT assignment to have that $27,500. I bring that to the detail in front of the council to assure you that dollars over $23,000 will be the 24-25 fiscal year dollars. So those will be the last dollars used if needed. We hope we keep it to the bid price of $22,627.40, but I'll be happy to answer any questions on that.
Let's just vote on these independently, so that could entertain a motion of support, if there is.
Trustee Wagner, I so move.
Trustee Reister, support.
Now, if there's any questions or discussion,
Yeah, Jim, just to clarify, you were saying that any of the additional funds would be last taken out of the general fund?
Correct. They're
5,000?
basically the
Right.
contingency.
Sure,
Yeah.
thank you.
any other questions, comments? We have a motion made by trustee Wagner, support by trustee Reister. We do a roll call, please, Kristen?
Trustee Reister,
Yes.
Trustee Olson,
Yes.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller,
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes. So we have another police vehicle in-car radar speed indicating.
Correct. Good news here. Talked to Chief Sanderson today. He was able to secure a quote. So this we will be amending the request. We want to outfit 2 of the 4 patrol vehicles with updated speed radar equipment. We originally had $8,000 to be the request. The chief was able to secure a quote for under $4,000. So again, with a few $100s of contingency, the specific request tonight in front of the council with the recommendation for a motion, support, and approval to purchase 2 state-of-the-art speed radar equipments to outfit 2 of the 4 patrol vehicles in an amount not to exceed $4,000. Again, this will not involve 24-25 general fund tax dollars. It will come from our capital improvement plan assignments from previous years in the CIP police fund that's listed there.
President Frisbee, so moved.
Trustee Reister, support.
Motion made by President Pro Tem Keller, support with trustee Reister. Do a roll call, please. Any further discussion, questions?
Yeah, these cars are gonna be marked, so I know which one's got the new technology in it.
They're
Not saying, just saying. you know?
they're not going to be marked so that Carl, potentially Leadfoot Keller, won't know which one actually has them. But hopefully, the council has previously approved 4 speed warning signs that will be placed throughout the village, so.
It's just a warning.
Yes.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
By the way, Jim, when's the warning signs gonna be put up? Do you know?
It's next year's budget, so after July 1st.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yep. And I anticipate that it'll be with, certainly before the end of summer, but hopefully July.
Oh, I can hardly wait for
So-
them, believe me.
So with the reduction in the initial request, I'm confident staff's already taken a look at this. Is it something we could also look at doing the other 2 vehicles, or are there other circumstances why we might not want to do that at this time?
Yeah, there's a strategic plan.
Sure.
You gotta give me a fighting
And
chance.
I'm totally, totally confident with that answer. I know we've talked about it a lot. We've purchased newer vehicles too recently, so.
Yeah, and we anticipate another vehicle being presented in the 25-26 fiscal year.
Okay,
So,
yeah, that answers the question. Thank you.
yeah, and it has to do also with the advancement of technology and the pace it's going right now, not to put the village in a position where every so few years they have to replace all 4. So.
Any further questions? We do a roll call, please, Christian?
President Pro Tem Keller,
Yes.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
Trustee Olson,
Yes.
Trustee Reister,
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes, motion carries.
And then the last action item here for the 24-25 fiscal year is the current truck, and it's a pickup with the bed is a dump truck style. It's from 1990. It's well lived its life here in the village. That is used to pick up brush each month and some limited other examples, because we certainly don't want to lose the ability to wood chip at the end of each month with that piece of equipment. We have been in contacts and secured My Deal's bid for a new 2024 Chevrolet medium-duty truck, cab and chassis diesel, at the stated payload pounds. It would be a regular cab with a dump truck bed. It's an all-purpose truck that will replace that 1990 Leaf truck that's exceeded its lifespan. The investment in this vehicle is listed in the 20 to 25 year range, and it's state of Michigan, My Deal's pricing is at $48,860 for the cab and chassis, and an additional estimated $23,500 for the dump bed. Total, the approval that we're recommending by motion, support, and approval is a total not to exceed $74,000. Again, this money has been saved by CIP assignments. It's cash on hand and will not use 24-25 fiscal year funds, and that's $74,000. So the motion would be to approve the village manager to enter a contract with one of the 5 listed sources, and there's one out of Grand Rapids that we were in communications with to complete this in the fiscal year. Anticipated with the build out on these trucks, it would be anticipated that it would be in our fleet next spring time of 2025.
Well, staff has a request to approve a 2024 medium-duty truck. What is this council's desire?
I move to approve.
I support.
Any questions or comments, any discussion? If I may just ask of Jimmy, what's the thought process behind a diesel?
Well, one, and he can tell you the application of it in talking to My Deals and 2 of the vendors within My Deals to extend the lifespan of the vehicle without issues. They recommended, due to the My Deals pricing and comparative to the, I think it's I'm trying to think the gas engine that they named off, it was their recommendation to invest in the diesel, and I had those communications with both the representative from My Deals and the 2 contractors, but Jimmy can tell. And this truck will be used for additional applications now than just lease, but.
It's a lot of idle time, and idle time on a diesel is a lot easier than idle time on a gas engine.
That part of it makes sense. I kind of caution in buying a diesel with today's DEF system on them. I just bought a C4500, and we went way out of our way to get a gas engine because those are so finicky. Now, if it is high idle time, you run them a lot, that's a different story. But if you're just making runs here and there, come loads here, I would recommend getting away from a diesel. Just my input on that.
Jim, the 1990 truck, is that gonna be auctioned off to
Yeah,
somebody?
after we secure the, we'll also have on a side note, a police vehicle that we took out of service will be going up for a sealed auction. More timing-wise, we'll look to see if we can do it within the budget, but July 2nd at the latest. But yes, the 1990 will, but it won't be till same thing a year from now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Any other questions? Well, we have a motion by trustee Wagner, support by trustee Reister. Do a roll call, please, Jim.
Trustee Olson,
Yes.
Trustee Reister,
Yes.
Trustee Wagner,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Keller,
Yes.
President Frisbee.
Yes.
Under the
The manager report.
Yeah, I don't know why I sidestep out of the agenda sometimes like I do, but I know President Frisbee, I certainly know Jimmy Myers knows, I know absolutely zero about engines. However, I did want it on this record and maybe within the minutes that I captured and plagiarized what was told to me by those vendors in the last week pretty good because it was enforced by Jimmy. That's exactly what he would have said. So I just wanted that to be archived in case I have to cite it in the future. However, I will highlight, and this council gets the credit, each year we in January present in front of the council our advice and recommendations reference fiscal planning as it relates to capital improvements and investments here within the village. Tonight, the village council approved $327,415 worth of investments. Of that, a maximum of $5,000 of the incoming tax revenue of the village will be used in the 24-25 fiscal year. And I think it's beginning to highlight what in years past in putting forward a savings plan for the future, it reinforces there was projects or ideas or suggestions, whether it was from citizens or neighborhoods or maybe even council or staff, that we said we really need to put that off until we get some of these key vehicles and whether it's been historically a crane truck or an updated vac truck or plow trucks to handheld equipment, personal equipment that we're providing DPW to jump in holes in the middle of January with. So I think it's noteworthy that the council has had that foresight and to do it, and it continuing with that plan in the future is certainly, I believe, the stated goal, and we'll continue to do that as we look out. It leads to item 1 on the village manager's report. We have had discussions in previous budgets and formulating them, and we obviously put forward a capital investments of how we see it over the next 6 years. We reinforce it in that January presentation when we look at capital commitments and assignments at a council level, and continually analyzing what is out there. You will, on May 20th, I'll be presenting the most extensive CIP detailed plan in my tenure here at the village over the course of the next 6 years. The significant portion of that will be staff's recommendation as it relates to internal capital needs, whether it's from the departments or village hall, etc. One of the exercises we'll be going through is getting input from the council, the planning commission, and returning to the council on other what would be CIP items, and those items will be the parking lot behind Main Street Hardware, Hills Buildings, the Distant Whistle. That's anticipated to be a $500,000 plus investment. Pickleball courts, skateboard park, Veterans Memorial, and also the recreation parks parking lot, a repaving of that. I've put a blank, I think, what's this, 4x7? I'm not good at. 5x7. We'll go with Trustee Reister's 5x7 blank card in front of each of the trustees. I'll read the items again, and just to help with the discussion of following is if you could put the number 1, and this would be your top preference of these 5 stated on that card, I'd appreciate it. It'll help facilitate the conversation as we go forward. So again, of where you're looking at priorities into the village at a monetary level that would meet our CIP, the choices would be a parking lot, a complete redo of the parking lot behind Main Street, which I'm talking in back of the Hardware Hills Distant Whistle, with some of the benefits being you could move to a dual facade for those businesses on that. Pickleball courts, a skateboard park, Veterans Memorial Park, or to redo the parking lot out at the recreational park. I can repeat those, but if just rank the top.
You want one from
I want right now the most important, and then subsequently your second, third, fourth, and fifth. So again, the list for your second most important would be a new parking lot behind Hills and the Distant Whistle, pickleball courts, skate park, Veterans Memorial, or recreation park, the parking lot repaved. And subsequently, the third, fourth, and fifth, again, parking lot behind Hills, pickleball courts, skateboard park, Veterans Memorial Park, rec park, the parking lot repaved. Pause a few minutes. These will be, and if I can have your name on those, we will retain these. They will be available to the public ultimately, but
Whoops.
will be used.
You can't have all the fun here, I got it.
Used on that May 20th presentation. And more than happy to have initial conversation, President Frisbee, on maybe not listing the rankings, but if any of you had a question on any of the items or why those 5 were chosen, I can tell you in a generic sense, feedback and having served the village over the last 8 years and available money over the next 6 as it aligns with running the operations of the government, those were the top 5 potential. I would ask, and again, we'll reinforce going into the 20th, if you have additional investments that are missed, certainly we would want to be aware of that and get it on that needs, wants, and wishes list. And of course, here in the next 30 days, I'll be having one-on-one contact with each of you. But I'm going to pause there and listen to any questions or comments on that. I do appreciate you filling these out. Okay.
Really?
On 12B, just looking at what we'll be going over as we narrow in to present this budget is May 6th, we'll be doing third quarter budget amendments of the fiscal year. There could be some information as well as 24-25. May 20th will be the CIP presentation and council's input and approval. The week before we'll be at the Planning Commission and as we narrow that down. June 3rd will be the Brownfield and Parks and Rec. June 17th we'll have a work session at 6 o'clock. And that will be the DDA in Brownfield. June 17th at our regular session at 7 p.m. will be employee 24-25 compensation and benefits. We have engaged in a comprehensive look at the benefit package we offer employees, including even potentially move into a pooled group situation with where entities are together. Should have that information completed, but I think it is incredibly important on the retention of quality employees we have to be able to present that to the council. On June 24th, fourth quarter amendments and then the formal budget presentation. We'll be sure to have that noticed out. For the 24th, we will be announcing a date that will kind of set somewhere between the 24th through June 30th as a potential date in case some hiccup happens that by ordinance we have to approve this next budget by June 30th. So we have a kind of, this is the year we have those 6 days to have that happen. So we'll announce that. If there's any questions on the budget process or type of scheduling, be happy to answer that. Couple updates. Non-motorized trail was repaved from the village limits up to TU Avenue. Very happy with the job that's done here in the next couple weeks. We should see the edging of the 22 Crush Creek rock or whatever edging there to finalize that. We are started social media post as well as sending information out. We have it on our GPS system at the golf course, the 151 and a half birthday celebration. We are asking local businesses to decorate their businesses in a birthday theme, have a full day of activities. Our council will be receiving individual emails to see if you're scheduled to attend. There will be at the May 6th council meeting, we've put together a program to purchase 25 $20 gift cards from Vicksburg local businesses that will be raffled off that day. So if patrons spend in excess of $20 in a Vicksburg establishment from 7 a.m. through 2 p.m. on May 18th, they'll be eligible to fill out a ticket that goes into the big bowl, and we will have guest and VIP drawers of those, just to highlight our business community. And the bands are all locked in, and we'll have hands-on cultural arts, food trucks, street games, etc. We're going to have a cupcake eating contest, so looking forward to that. If anyone has any questions on that.
Taking applications for participants?
I thought I saw something from all of you being involved in it.
My wife has already volunteered.
There you go. A couple comments, or a comment, and then two comments, and then a kind of an announcement. First is, this is our third week of the Citizens Academy. We've had a total of 15 residents sign up for it and participate in the 2 weeks we've had. Very pleased, thankful for staff. It added 6 weeks of one more night a week, but they stepped to the plate, and I think it's going very well, and appreciative of that. So keep that moving forward. I want to reemphasize, I said at the last meeting, but all the work Jackie Coney has done, has just incredibly organized and thorough, and it's just been a blessing. So at this meeting, very much thank you, and certainly anyone that would be associated with Jackie Coney in the future, it would be a blessing to whatever organization that is, and who knows, maybe even the village of Vicksburg. So on the last is an announcement. On Friday, August 2nd, we were approached by the Gilmore concert series, pianos and in that. I don't know vehicle engines, nor am I a musician or artist. But I do know the Gilmore Festival in this county, and specifically the city, is quite noteworthy. They have a concert truck series, and it's coming to Vicksburg. They've certainly taken note at the commitment to the cultural arts and music scene that Vicksburg has done in the last couple of years. So the date they had available was Friday, August 2nd. This was just finalized today. So working with a group that I normally work with to kind of get the fine details on how best to utilize. It'll be a 2-hour concert, and those are the details we are certainly going to be working on and announcing as we move forward. But I thought it was noteworthy to bring tonight that Vicksburg being recognized in that area, and such a noteworthy organization like the Gilmore, certainly something to be proud of. So that will conclude my report tonight. Be happy to answer any questions. And like I said, look for an email from myself so we can schedule some one-on-one time and discuss not only fiscal year, but the new fiscal year and everything else. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
Jim, I got a question.
Yes.
Jim, during the planning commission and during the council meeting here, there's been discussion of a stoplight at Richardson and Prairie. Any more?
Well, the comments made, I don't know of any comments made at a public meeting. We had comments at the Citizens Academy, but upon the development at Richardson and Prairie, we had traffic engineers look at potential impact and the development. And at the planning commission level, under site plan review that was worked out with staff and the developer, currently the curb cut has 2 entry-exit points. It's only going to have 1 entry-exit point at the furthest point north it can have. We also, and the developer was great to work with, we moved the building location on the site. Don't hold me to the numbers. They had X number in the queue that would be waiting in their drive-through. Mm-hmm. And when we moved the building, that increased by 4 or 5 cars that would be in the site, and added, I believe, an additional parking spot. We also required them to have a handicap spot. Comments have come up. I don't know how qualified, but concerns of citizens reference that area. So I made the comment that we'll only know once the data's in front of us. There's no reason, a lot of work went into predictable analysis and how it influenced the site plan as is. We know there's about 7,700 cars a day through that intersection. But once it unfolds, there are all kinds of options of what's optimal. So whether that would be a 3-way stop sign, a traffic light, or no different than, let's say, a concert at Wayne Stadium, where if you know it's busier in the morning and afternoon, correlated with the middle school pickup, which the schools have moved their pickup through the administration, not off Prairie. We would have the option of putting our school resource officer out there directing the traffic and getting people through there. So those are the comments made, but we haven't, until it's built, until it's in operation, until we see how this unfolds. Myself, I hope it's incredibly busy. It shows the Vicksburg is thriving. I've told a couple people, especially related to downtown, I have yet to hear from a business owner downtown that doesn't want traffic in our downtown because they want their stores and businesses filled. But that's comments, if you've heard how they go. There's not going to pay to have a study done until we have the data in front of us, and then if we feel it warrants it, we'll move forward.
obviously they've broken ground in the last week or so, and that, have they suggested a finish date when they plan on opening, and how long is it gonna take? 3, 4 months, 5 months?
No, not at this point. I don't think it'll take 5 months.
No, I don't think so either. I can tell you that I go by the Big B Coffee in Pawpaw and the one at West Lake all the time, and this lot is bigger than both of those. That Pawpaw one is a nightmare, and they're parking out on the side roads. They have 3, 4 cars going through the drive-through, and that's it, but.
Yeah, you know, it's a local developer that's invested in the community with the Big Bs, and they've been incredible to work with. They've my memory's stretched, but I can't recall anything related to a suggestion we had that they didn't put into their plan.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Committee reports. Did you have anything you wanted to speak to on the tree committee? I know you guys are making a lot of headway, but there's a lot to do.
Yep, we've made a lot of headway, and we're getting together again tomorrow night to finalize things. I think that Kate Wonderland, I think she has contacted you,
Yes, we've
right?
been, yep.
Yep. And, yeah,
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
She said me.
this one right here.
well, she got us both of us.
Yeah. And so there's been a lot of work that has been done, that finally getting to a point where I think we've got a good presentation for you. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
We've
so
been
she
working
sent me an
on it.
email today or last couple of days I responded to on availability of time, and I offered 2 alternative
Great.
times that I could meet.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think you're going to be very happy with what we have to present.
Thanks so much. So Wendy's out. We'll jump by Parks and Recs. Cats meeting was pretty quick. There wasn't much. It was held in the new Kalamazoo Road Commission building, so I had an opportunity to go tour it a little bit. But one of the big topics of discussion for anyone that is a bicyclist and enthusiast there that Ride Kalamazoo has come up with this commuter challenge. So I'll just give you the website if you're so inclined to look it up. It's lovetoride.net/Kalamazoo, and they partnered with us. They've held their event in September here, I think the last 3 or 4 years. But this is a app that is a map. So if you get online, you say, this is my starting point, and then when you finish your ride, this is my ending point, and you rate it. And this is a national rating system. So any rider from Detroit, if they're coming over to visit, they want to go for a ride. And this database will build up over time. So right now, it's just they're just rolling it out to see what kind of participation they get in it. And I just thought that was real cool for the people that like to ride. The district supervisor, the district, what's his title, that runs the CATS facility. The executive director, thank you. He was given a 6% raise. By all notes, he's doing a phenomenal job, and everybody's extremely satisfied with what they're doing. So that takes care of CATS. And Wendy was at the Planning Commission too meeting, so she'll have to update us on at the next meeting next Monday. And just note for next Monday, I'm going to be traveling. Hopefully there's snow still in Colorado, but I'll be there on business. And so Carl will be sitting in South County Sewer. The meeting was canceled last month. So that takes us to fire.
Yes, we met a week and a half ago. Biggest things to come out of it, the ambulance agreement, they're looking at October of this year. They're going to be putting it out to 3 to 4 different vendors to bid. Life is one of them, obviously. Then AMR was another ambulance service. And then Huron Valley, which bought Life Care, I guess they said. So they're writing the RFPs, they'll be going out, and so October will be the time that they should be getting those back. Was informed by the chief that there is a new reporting program that they're looking at. It's called First Due. I actually reached out to Manager Mallory the morning after that. It has to do with ISO reporting, and it also, this software will also help with their payroll with QuickBooks, I guess. It dovetails into that or whatever. It's about $14,000 a year. So it's a pretty big knot that I was concerned. So I reached out to Jim to see if he could talk to some of his fire buddies and see what they knew about it. And he said, yes, it is I asked the question, well, we get 3 bids, right? And they said, oh, no, it's a single source program, which my red flag went up immediately. But I was assured by Jim that no, it is through one source. So they're looking at that. We had a firefighter that came off probation period, Dakota Dunkley, so he's now newly minted. I guess they wear a white coat when they're a trainee or whatever, but now he will not have a white coat anymore. I will let you know that I did approach during the Finance Committee. We're talking facilities again, just lightly talking about them. I suggested again that and I'm not on the Facilities Committee, but I did suggest that we look at a targeted survey to have somebody come in independently and look at ISO ratings and tell us where the best place for a possible new facility is or facilities. Some of the board is very apprehensive to do that because of a study that was done 10 plus years ago. I assured them that I'm looking at a targeted survey, only looking at facilities, not looking at anything else. Manager Miller was able to give me a list of companies that provide that service. I've forwarded it to the chair, so we'll see where it goes. I've tried to impress upon them that we need to take politics out of this and you know, be as transparent as possible so that if they do decide the best place for a facility is just outside of town to the west, we have the data to back it up, and we didn't choose it. It was chosen by an independent company. So anyways, that's it.
Thank you so much. Any citizens' comments? Now's the time to, can be non-agenda items. Not seeing any, we'll start with trustees' time. Trustee Wagner.
Yeah, so the in-laws were in town this weekend. We had a wonderful breakfast at the Rise and Dine, but the 151st and a half birthday got me in a little hot water with the mother-in-law because she asked, well, just how old is Vicksburg? And I said, coming up on 151 and a half, and she thought I was being quite the smart aleck. So very targeted, very good on that. And yeah, so she appreciated it, and she's actually looking forward to the events. Hopefully can be down. Jackie's book is available on Amazon, $13.95 in paperback. It says it right there, available in Prime. So if you're interested in like baseball, I think Jackie's probably got some good content there.
Doris Kern's good one. Doris Kern's good one.
But that's all for me this evening. Thank you.
Trustee Reister.
Well, first of all, have you checked the Tiger score yet? No. Shoot. Okay. I just am so appreciative of all of the people who come and explain things to us, and especially tonight with Baker Tilly. I thought he did a phenomenal job. I was able to follow it very, very easily, and so I really appreciated that. And I, too, am getting very excited about our birthday party, trying to get my whole family to come and celebrate with us, so looking very much forward to that.
Trustee Olson.
Just one thing is that bicycling is starting up again. That's great, but we got to watch out for them, and they have to watch out for us. More than one time I've had one blow a stoplight in front of me or a stop sign, and a couple nights ago one was killed in Kalamazoo by the viaduct and hit and run. How anybody can do that and leave someone dying on the road, I'll never understand, but Just everybody, please be careful out there. Thank you.
President Pro Tem Keller.
Other than I unfortunately will not be able to attend the 151st and a half, I'll be watching 2 grandkids in Midland, so their parents will be out of town, so. Can you bring them down? I don't think that'd fly very far with my daughter, so.
Well, I'll just, real quickly, again, Zach Bishop, Jessica Cox, Chad Kissinger, thanks so much. This just shows you what 8 years can do. You know, wasn't too long ago, we couldn't get anybody to come fill a seat. And so it's really fun to see the excitement that the community is bringing and the involvement with everyone in the community. Citizen Academy, Jim, thanks so much, staff. You guys, incredible presentation last week, Michelle on the finances. That's been a really big, this is only the 2 that we've done out of the 6, but the responses we're getting are just phenomenal. And Jackie, the RRC, you finally got us out of the rut and getting us close to the finish line. Thanks for what you're doing, you know. That was it from me, so entertain a.
Do you have a schedule for the next citizens meetings?
Wednesday at 6:30.
No, but who's, what council members are at what meeting?
Yeah, we'll send that out.
All right.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.